And now our world is having all of these issues, and women have all of these issues with their bodies, with their well-being, or just being able to be on this earth in a very powerful way, whether that's physically or like through money and material things. So yeah, I think the relationship between feeling powerful, or the way that you feel, period, and how you're physically showing up on this world, whether it's your body or like your bank account.
So I know a little bit about you, but will you share with us just some really your personal journey on your relationship with your own physical body? The heart of my mission really is giving, and it's very similar to what you offer, is like, it's all inner work, right? Our outer world is just an expression. So if you try to change things on the outside, right, it's could be short-lived, right? It's not going to be long-lasting. But if you go to the root of whatever it is, like, that is where massive change starts, and then everything else just kind of falls into place. So my whole mission is giving women the inner tools to heal and transform themselves, really empowering the female collective with like getting them back in touch with their natural power source. We literally can create and bear life. Like that is this vessel that we're working with, like, and the magnetism of like that, and the magnificence, and like that we lose that, right? We don't really look at our beauty and our divinity and like our ability, just our natural God-given ability in this suit that we have, and the power that we can harness once we tap back into it. It's there, but I think a lot of women are dormant, right? We've been taught or conditioned to think a certain way, to be a certain way, right? But if you can get really to that raw power that is in every single woman on the planet, my mission is getting women back in touch with that. But what that takes is healing a lot of the crap in the way.
Absolutely. When you said, you're kind of like, the women's bodies can literally create life. And if you talk to women, who are maybe like they're homemakers or stay-at-home moms, like a lot of the times they'll say things like, I'm just a mom. And it's like, oh, you just act like you're like creating life on this earth, like you're just like God incarnate. Like, okay, yeah. But we underestimate ourselves. And I think that's like, we almost like gaslight ourselves into believing that like our most incredible powers are actually things that are benign, or even things that we should be ashamed of, or things that are weak. A lot of our strengths have been kind of like, we've been micro-traumatized into believing that they're actually our weaknesses, like our ability to connect, emotionality, our spirituality. We've been locked behind enclosed doors saying we couldn't handle life because we were too weak, when really it was because we had like this completely different insight into, the other half of reality that, we've been totally gaslit out of trusting. And now our world is having all of these issues, and women have all of these issues with their bodies, with their well-being, or just being able to be on this earth in a very powerful way, whether that's physically or like through money and material things. So I think the relationship between feeling powerful, or the way that you feel, period, and how you're physically showing up on this world, whether it's your body or like your bank account or your environment, the people around you, like the things that are like physically happening. I think when we are not like, if we don't feel comfortable with that, if we don't feel like this is my body, like this is the body that I would recognize as being mine, which is how I felt for the majority of my life, that I was in a body that like didn't feel like it was mine, or you wake up and you look at your life and you think like, how the hell did I end up here? Like this environment and this situation it just isn't mine.
Can you go into, when you say not yours, like what was it? Was it like a disconnect? Like why didn't it feel like yours?
I have this kind of really unique experience because my body like holds weight well. I look like pretty okay when I'm like chunky. So I never had a problem with the way that I looked. Like, really, it's that when I'd look at myself, I'd think that's just isn't me. like this isn't my body. When I'd move around, I'd feel uncomfortable. You know, I'd bend and you'd feel like a little roll, and it's like, well, what is that stuff? You know,
Yeah.
like why is that in the way? Why is that there? You know, like this is not my body. Like, can we just like hop out of this one and get into the body that is like mine? And it's funny because I'll get into the journey, but when I lost all the weight, I actually didn't feel like elated or like, oh, I'm so hot now or anything like that. I just stopped thinking about being uncomfortable. I was just comfortable. You know, you walk into a store, you buy some clothes, you walk out, you go to a friend, you know, you have to like bend over to like pick up their kid, and like you're not caring if your shirt rides up, and you know what I mean? Like your little roll shows, or you know what I mean? Like I wasn't thinking anymore about like sharing myself. I didn't think about myself. I was just there, which is just so empowering. And it's the complete opposite. You know, I think women think like, once I get super fit, I'm just going to be like, bam, I'm going to walk into a room, I'm going to own it because I'm so hot, and look at me and whatever. And it's like, actually, the reality is you're just going to walk into a room and just be fully present because you're no longer worried about yourself. So like for me, worrying about myself gave me like anxiety for my whole life. And, you know, I ate well and I exercised, and like I went on diets and, you know, did extra exercise and stuff, and nothing ever worked for me, like at all. Like nothing ever did anything to my body until I went to Asia and I studied for a year and a half, like Eastern kind of principles of healing and spirituality and philosophy, and a lot of nutrition as well. And I lost a bit of weight, but it was really when I went to university and I couldn't use my Eastern modes of like coping as much anymore. And I had to like go fully into this like Western rigid kind of disciplined, you know, scientific community. And I got incredible bouts of anxiety. I had to go on anxiety medication because I was just like losing my mind and I could not get a grip. And meanwhile, I was like taken under the wing by this scholar who recognized that I had really a lot of aptitude for theory. I guess because of all of the philosophy and like the big ideas that I'd studied, I could dive into huge ideas of scientific theory and put them all together. And he was like, you're going to be a serious academic. We're going to do this. So he was like, really gave me like foundation stability. And I ended up going to counseling and doing like, you know, realizing that I had all this micro trauma and I was coming from like a family with mental health issues, and working on myself in this like Western way. And I melded the Eastern and Western kind of, I guess, ways of healing. And I just started swimming. Like I graduated in first class standing without having even near a high school diploma. Like I didn't even do grade 10. And I graduated in first class standing. I was going on the path to being a serious scholar without having done high school. And I got into my ideal body without changing anything, without even really thinking about it. And I was, you know.
That's my most favorite part, because I wanted to, and hopefully we weave this in throughout the story, is so many women, we project all of our feelings and hatred and blame and guilt and all that and shame onto the body when our body hasn't done anything but do its best to keep us alive. So what I try to untangle with my clients is that projection of we just put all this, right? Like you bend over and you felt that roll, right? Well, some women internalize that into like, well, I'm awful. Or what does this mean about me? What does this say about me, right? I'm unlovable. I'm not worthy of the good things in life, right? We internalize that. So we've just projected all this kind of our deep darkness onto our bodies. And so I'm really interested in if that was your experience, and if how you were able to just release kind of the extra weight. I'd also never heard a woman say, I carry weight well. Like, I don't think a woman has ever said that ever to me. And you just said it so beautifully, like my body carries weight well, you know, like that's such a really like empowering way to look at it, rather than, you know, I'm fat or worthless or chubby or, you know, whatever we could say.
Sure. Yeah. I think one of the most important things for women to do is to get really clear with themselves about even what they want. You know, because for me, it wasn't that like, oh, I want to look like a magazine model or whatever. For me, it was just like, I feel very uncomfortable, and it isn't about the way that I look. When I look at myself, I don't recognize myself, but it's not that I'm looking at myself and being like, oh, you're so fat and you're so ugly. And I think that, you know, people, a lot of women are looking at themselves and saying, oh, you know, you're so fat and you're so ugly. And then we're very quick to look at, oh, well, it's this toxic kind of media and these, you know, unattainable beauty standards, et cetera, et cetera. And that could be it. And for women, I think that it's really important for us to get clear about whether or not that's it. Like, is it about somebody else? Is it about looking a certain way for somebody else? Or, you know, would I be more comfortable if I just didn't have that one little role? You know, like, do I want to lose 100 pounds, or actually would I be cool with losing 15? Is that really what my ideal body is? What I think I look good at? And like, it's really beautiful now that we actually have different kinds of bodies in the media, so that people can look at different kinds of bodies and say like, that's beautiful, so that they can get really clear with themselves about what they really want. But yeah, I think that's the first step. Because then if you're trying to get into a body that you don't actually truly want, I think that that's like just perpetuates that war mentality that you're talking about, where it's like me against like my body. If my body is overweight, that means something's wrong with me. You know, if I have this fat, it means these bad things, like, you know, I'm undisciplined and I eat too much and, you know, I'm lazy. And yeah, that means I'm not lovable because, you know, the media is telling me that this is what's beautiful. Like, those kinds of things need to also be addressed, because at that stage, that's not really about your body. That's about your mind.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. So what I do think is fascinating, and one thing that really, because I took your program, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I thought it was the idea of how your body changed as a natural result of the way that you are living. That's in line with nature, right? But I think just as human beings right now, we're living so out of line with nature that when things like that happen, it's like, wow, it's amazing. I thought it was so just an incredible, powerful story to show women like it's not about calories in, calories out, or excessive exercising, or right. But so I was
can make you gain weight. All that stuff is like more positively correlated with weight gain long term. Really, really don't do that, guys.
Yeah. So I wanted to, will you share about how you transformed your body as a natural result of the way that you were living? And then the weight just, you know, naturally came off, not as like this hustle that you tried to do.
Totally. So actually what I was doing in university, I was specializing in studying inspiration. So I was studying, kind of, my hypothesis was that what inspires you, like what really fires you up and what you feel like, you know, there's like a spark towards when you hear about it, when you think about it, those are the things that are like naturally meant for you, like that, you know, it's your purpose, or like it's gonna what's going to make you happy, or it's your highest good, whatever you want to call it. So I think being able to like study that and dive into it, and I found it everywhere. Like I found it everywhere, from like, you know, Aristotle to like, you know, New Age kind of spiritualism, in literature, in politics, just in everywhere I looked. So I think being able to kind of live in that state where I was like constantly chasing what really turned me on, you know, like what really inspired me, which was a study of inspiration.
Yeah.
And having a foundation that was very, very stable. So this was also the first time in my life that I had a foundation that was incredibly stable. I understood the rules of the game. You know, I understood what was to be expected. I was also around people who were of a mind that was considerate, that, you know, they were progressive. So there was, you know, there's way less sexism in, you know, on a university campus than anywhere else. There's way more kind of acceptance and like the understanding of the plight of history and people of different races, etc., on a university campus than I think anywhere else in society. So for me, I don't think you need to go to university to do this, but for me, that was like my first glimpse of really being safe and really being stable. So as women in society, we we don't have that safety or that stability. We're totally, I mean, physically unsafe at almost all the time, which we have to manage. And we're also, we don't know the rules of the game. There's no rules that we can win at this game. If you're in touch with your sexuality, then you're a slut. If you're not, and you're highly like intellectual or sporty or whatever, then like you're useless, kind of like a, I don't know, people say prude, but I almost like, if you're a lesbian, I mean, you're absolutely useless in patriarchy and you're completely shoved aside and forgotten. Like, you talk to lesbians about how they feel about it. And so it's like, there's no winning. Like, if you dress frumpy, then you're not attractive. If you dress sexy, then you're a slut. It's just, like, if you have kids and you devote your life to them and you stay at home with them and you do this incredible job, you're just a mom. If you go out in the workforce and, you have a career, people are asking you, like, who's at home with your kids? Like, we don't know the rules of the game because there's no winning this game. There's no rules. It's like the rules are just like made up as they go. So I think that gives us like this constant state of like unease. And I personally believe that like me gaining weight, that is like a direct correlation of me being anxious and feeling unsafe to be vulnerable. And I think that's for the same for a lot of women. So having that stability and the safety and understanding the rules of the game to be able to go after the thing that really sets me on fire, my purpose, I think that was it. That was the magical kind of formula that just let me just be myself. And, the weight just dropped off. Like, literally, it was like every couple of months I just had to buy like a new size pants. Like, even like my underwear weren't fitting anymore. I had to get like new underwear, and I was like, what the hell is going on? After like years of struggling and never having any results whatsoever, it just happened. And I think that that's why like I was actually allowed to be myself fully.
That's so beautiful. And I think that's what I love about your work, is that you're speaking to that part of being a woman. It's not about counting your macros. And I mean, I'm sure if you talk to any woman, like, we've all tried all of it,
Yeah, for sure.
The keto, the vegan, the green, like, you name it. You'll talk to any woman and she can run off the 25 different things that she's tried, right? But what you're speaking to, not only is it the blend of the Western and the Eastern, which is so beautiful and valuable, what you're speaking to is like that, our safety, our willingness to be vulnerable, feeling stable, having active passion in which we are moving toward in our existence. Like, these are the things that like nobody talks about in transforming your physical body. Because I tend to believe like the body is just the physical part of our energetic patterning. So if you can see it on your body, you've got some work to do on the energetic realm, which is emotional, spiritual, all of that. So I think it's just so incredibly valuable that you bring up this piece. I do have a question. If you have some tools or suggestions on as far as how women can feel more stable and more safe in their varying environments.
Yeah, so that is, you just said it, it's environment, which yeah, I mean, it depends, like, specifically for the person. So for me, like, having parents that had like mental health issues, and not being safe in that way, my dad's done a lot of work. That's why I'm like close with him. Then I think that we all have like these micro traumas.
Yeah.
And I think that your specific micro trauma is going to attract into your life kind of situations that is going to aggravate it. And I think that's because you're supposed to be healing it. And so it's not just going to like disappear. It actually wants to be seen and heard and healed. So until you kind of like do that, it's going to like keep showing up. So for me, I've attracted like a lot of like really crazy people in my life, and like really crazy situations, and having like insecurities that like, oh, like people aren't going to like me, or having like social anxieties and stuff, then that meant that I got those kinds of things in my life, and those kinds of challenges kept coming up. So it's really important to like heal yourself for sure. But I think first and foremost is to protect yourself from people, places, situations that trigger you so that you can actually give yourself the space to heal.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just about a you thing. It's not like about like one of my parents, my mother suffers from like a sort of, it's like an antisocial kind of personality disorder where she's like very, very judgmental. So that's like something that personally I need to steer away from too. It's not about like being judgmental and being like, oh, these people suck and they're low vibe and I don't want to be around you. It's like, no, it's like, it's for my health. I need the really strict boundaries around these people and just to like heal like the things that I have going on. So like that's a very necessary thing for people. And I think it's hard for people to hear for that. And that's on the independent side. So there's like, I've just realized lately that there's like kind of two distinct stages in life. And one is getting independent, right? So being able to like be that person who strives after your dreams and has your inspirations, understands what you want, what kind of body you want, what kind of life that you want, what your values are and what you believe in. And then there's like this next level of like interdependence where you're actually working with other people to create that with them and like understanding other people's values and what they want and working with them in community to get it. So I think that also like that lesson too, being like, oh, well, if they're triggering you, kick them to the curb is not for the person who needs to like get to the interdependent state, because in the interdependent state, it's like people will trigger you and you've got to work through it.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that like one way to tell between the two is whether like the person is willing to work through it or not. Even if like they're willing and it still keeps happening and it takes a really long time, I think as long as they're willing, then like you're totally justified in sticking it through. And then if people are like just completely not and they'll gaslight you for telling them how you feel, then I think that you need to like create space. And then for the independent person, habits and routines. And for the interdependent person, making sure that like the little things that you need to do, you get to do. The little things that you need to do, like separate from other people, you get to do them. And the little things that you need to do with other people, you get to do them too. And also like realizing that the people around you, the little things that they need to do with you get done as well. So it gets a little bit more complex when you're going into interdependence, and I'm just learning about it now.
Yeah.
But it's like anything. It's really, really personal. But I think at the end of the day, you really know deep down what's healthy for you and what's not. Maybe not all the time. Sometimes you could question, like my relationship's been really hard because we're both coming from like childhoods filled with micro trauma. But like when I think like this isn't working, I gotta go or something, it's fleeting. And then the rest of the time is like, no, this is like, it's good that we're working through this. Yeah, stuff is hard, people are hard, whatever. So I think that, like people really know what they need to do. Everybody that I've ever talked to, they kind of like at the end of the day, they know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
we're far more brilliant and powerful than like we acknowledge or give ourselves credit for.
Yeah. So
and
trust
if we
yourself.
Can start activating and turning that on in all human beings, I mean, we would just operate on a whole different level.
Oh yeah.
I teach this with my clients. It's kind of like the number one is the radical responsibility. Like change is not possible, even if we're relating it to changing your body or changing your inner state. If you're not willing to like take responsibility for your part, your behavior, your words, your thoughts, your way of looking at something, your perspective, like if you don't own that, that's really the root of any kind of change. Has to be rooted in like your power center, right? I have choice.
For sure. Even that's like one of the things I actually you had said something about like what is the most important thing a woman can do for herself. And I was thinking about it and I was like, one of the things that I think is the most important thing is to like take responsibility for stuff that wasn't your fault. Like, okay, you have all this like trauma and stuff. You have all these like bad reactions. You've got all this crappy programming. You've got these, like these bad habits and this like epigenetics that are all messed up. It's like none of that was your fault. But if you can take responsibility for it, be like, well, this is my life now.
Yes.
I think that's one of like the most important things that anybody can do, for sure. So I'm totally there with you.
And it's so funny, nobody can do that for you. Like, it takes a huge amount of courage and humility to be like, I didn't cause this, right? It's not my fault, but it happened, and I'm willing to take ownership so that I can change it. Because as long as we're putting our power into the situation, the person, the whatever, we're over here in victim land, right? We have no power to change anything. So it's like, it almost sounds counterintuitive. Like, when we own it, when we take responsibility, our power, we get actually infused with our own personal power in the owning of it. And then we use that power to transform.
Absolutely. Even in little sort of day-to-day things, you know, when somebody hurts your feelings, it's like, instead of being like, this person hurt my feelings and I'm justified in feeling bad, it's like, just like being like, okay, my feelings are hurt. Period. This is my responsibility. They're my freaking feelings. So like, let's do something about it, you know?
Yes. Imagine if we were all walking around like that. Because I teach my kids that. I am huge on responsibility, but I also teach them triggers and shadow work and how to analyze that, right? If they get, so like, they're well informed for little humans, but I teach them about like, it's not my job to make you feel good, right? That's your job. And then I talk and I teach them tools on how to navigate that, right? You maybe didn't like what happened, but it's your choice, personal power on how you interpret, how you respond. All of that is where your power lives. And that's essentially how you create your moments over and over and over, right? And then we can get into conditioning and all that.
Yeah, it's like that whole forgiveness. Like, I don't forgive because like other people deserve it. I forgive because I deserve it. You know, I deserve to like let things go and to like forgive and move on from things. Like, that's like totally like a radically kind of taking responsibility for how you feel, you know?
That's definitely one of my number one tools for women is actively forgiving. And most importantly, I feel like that's self-forgiveness. Like, I'm all about the self, right? Self-mastery, self-talk. So it's all like, your outer world is just a reflection. So if you can master here, you know, it's a done deal on the external. It all comes from within.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when we forgive ourselves, it's so much easier to forgive a partner or a child or a friend, because it's a learned behavior. You know it because you practice it on yourself.
Totally. My partner, actually, I was like 2 years in or something, I finally came to the conclusion. I was like, I understand why they say you can't love somebody else until you love yourself first, because you legit don't know what to do unless you practice within first. Like, legit, you don't know what to do. Like, how do you like actively love someone, you know, if you haven't practiced on yourself, like, you know, loved yourself through a goal, or loved yourself through a challenge, or loved yourself through whatever it is that you're going up against. How can you actually like love somebody else through it? You won't even know how.
I totally 100%. Okay, so tell me, did you ever feel at war with yourself? Or you just were uncomfortable and felt like you weren't in the right body? Did you ever feel hate, like just really a war?
Oh yeah. I mean, I felt like I like lost the war. I felt like I was a victim of war or something. I was like a war prisoner. Like, nothing I did anything. So like, all I could do, I feel like, in those days, it was like, it was so in line with me not being in my power. I feel like all I could do was like constantly kind of like, well, maybe it was because I was focused on the external and I was trying to do things like workout or diet or whatever, that I was like constantly just like projecting. I was constantly just like looking outside myself and just like projecting like an image that I wanted to be, because like I felt so completely powerless to actually be it. So yeah, it was like yeah, I totally felt like I had lost the war, and the only way that I could move forward was to kind of like fake it or live in some kind of altered reality where I wasn't fully like accepting or embracing what the reality was. I guess cuz I didn't have the tools to change it. I didn't have the tools to really like be empowered by it, being authentic. And I don't even think it was like related so much to my body. It was more just everything to myself in general, to who I was, to trusting myself, to feeling safe to come out, you know, and like be myself. Is just kind of like I shed a layer, you know, like a couple, and walked into my power. But yeah, before then, I mean, I can just remember like just crumpling on the floor, just like crying, like just hating myself because I just felt so like I didn't belong here. Like I didn't belong on this planet. Like I didn't belong in this life. Like something was really, really wrong. And it was just that like I didn't belong living the way that I was living. I didn't belong thinking the way that I was thinking, feeling the way that I was feeling, you know, being on this like projecting vibe that I was vibing on. And yeah, my body too, you know? It was just like a reminder every time I looked in the mirror that like, oh yeah, this is our reality. Like, you know, we aren't ourselves. We don't know who we are. We don't know where we belong, or like, but that's not you. I know that for sure. So yeah, I think, yeah, the war is kind of like almost a symptom.
It is. It totally is. And it's so refreshing. I don't know if I'm lighting up we've been taught that it's, like I said, the exercise, the calories, something's wrong with you. You're a failure, right? Because the diets are just set up to fail, but you feel when it doesn't work for you, you feel like a failure, you know? And it's like to hear you say these words of stability, safety, authenticity, passion, inspiration, like this is the medicine. This is how you heal and transform your body. Nowhere in the conversation are we talking about, you know, the current narrative on how to change your body. And I know that some people have found a lot of success with that way, but I love that this conversation, because I believe in what you're saying. I think our bodies will show us where we're out of alignment. And if we can interpret it correctly and not fall into like shame, blame, guilt, failure thinking, we can actually use our body as our greatest teacher to help us navigate. Where am I not being authentic? Where do I not feel safe? Right? Where's my anxiety coming from? Like if we can use the body as kind of our compass to show us, to navigate us back home. And that's the wisdom I feel like we're lacking in our current system.
For sure. I actually just want to rewind like one sec, because you said that some people get a lot of results and success that way, like dieting and exercise. And I have like poured over the research. Like I
know you're a researcher.
So basically what I found this like massive study on like all of the long-term weight losers in the States. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of people. There's like a registry that long-term weight losers are part of, or like quite a few of them are part of. And so these researchers went over and found all of the people who had lost weight long term and tried to find like correlations between them. So the things that they did the same. And legit, I mean, there was an uptick in activity. And I believe that there may have been sort of healthy eating changes, but the number one positive correlation is they had a reason that was beyond themselves to lose weight. So I personally believe that these people who we see as having success from doing diets and exercise, they're actually people who have had a transformation of another kind. And the you know, diets or eating better and living more active is actually just sort of traits of them loving themselves and loving their life more and dropping more authentically into the things that they value and really taking care of themselves. Like I really do not believe that these people are actually out there forcing themselves, counting calories, hating every moment of it, you know, and like dragging their butts to the gym and crying on the way home. Like that is not what is going on. These people are doing it out of love, and the other way, it doesn't work. Even people can like lose weight by extremely cutting calories, but honestly, if you look it doesn't even end up being beautiful, really. I mean, that's totally subjective. But in practice, like I said, like I study a lot of people who are either that are thin, you know, that are like lean. And I found that people that go the route of really unhealthy means, they actually don't end up with what I would consider beautiful bodies. And when people who are like supermodels, etc., they eat everything. They tend to eat like smaller portions a lot of the times, but they're also like tiny people who have tiny muscles and tiny bones, and they don't need a lot of calories, you know, but they don't extreme diet. They don't do these things to their body. They take care of themselves really, really well. So I think that when we're seeing people who are like living an active lifestyle, eating really well, or even if they go on a diet and they drop a bunch of weight and they keep it off, they're still people, I think, necessarily that have had a different kind of switch, like an internal switch. And like the weight was kind of like something that happened alongside it.
I would absolutely agree. Because even if you talk to them, you can tell they're like, I had a transformation, right? Yeah. I started to feel good about myself. I started to love who I was. I started to, you know, breathe better. And it is a natural reaction that of course you take care of yourself more. Like the same way you would, if you love something, you care for it. Totally. So I always teach, when you increase self-love, everything else gets better and easier because you naturally care for the things that you love. Just, it's a natural, but you don't have to try.
No.
You just by nature will take loving care of something that you value, you know, such as yourself.
Yeah, your values. Yeah, for sure.
Now, I know I've been keeping track on your YouTube channel that you are going through another journey right now with your body and all that you have learned from that. Because I know you really thought like I cracked the code here.
Yeah.
Right? Back when you created the IBCC and all that, like you really like you had essentially, you know, matched up the pieces and really, you know, experienced something lovely. And now, you know, you're on the other side of that. So share a little bit about what you're going through.
Yeah. So I guess in school, you know, I had this sort of breakthrough and I was doing really, really well. And that was the same for years, you know, like I was good. I was real good. I had great friends. I had a great community. I had a great career outlook and a great body and all the things, you know. And that was me. Now that I look in hindsight, that was me being really independent. You know, we're talking about getting into that independence and really being who I was, you know, that authenticity. And then I fell in love with this man who I'd known since I was like 19 years old. And I thought that this was it. And we were going to be like everything. And he was right when we kind of like fell for each other. He was going on this trip through the States. And he left and just pretty much never came back. He wanted to be like on a different path. And I was like, it like broke me. Like I was like broken. And at the same time, I realized in school too that like academia was just way too restricting for me. So I wanted to go on this different path and do my own thing and do my own research. And losing him and I guess losing my path too, I thought it broke me. I thought that I thought I actually may have like slipped into like being like actually like clinically depressed, but I still kept waking up every day and like going for my runs and taking care of myself and being in a clean house and whatever. And I was like, okay, so this isn't like depression, but like I was like kind of just a little bit like, not a little bit, I was like broken. I would run into people and they would be like, how are you? And I would be like, honestly, I've never been this sad in my whole life. And I don't know if it's ever going to get better. And most people would be like, you know, like everybody goes through this and it's all good, which made me feel normal. But that started this like whole journey of me just like being kind of like floating around on my own, trying to figure out, you know, how to like get my research to people and not feeling confident in myself at all. And then I met my partner, who is my partner now, and he was like this really great guy, and so I thought, okay, this is going to be a huge challenge for me. I've got this like really great guy, and I'm coming from all of this, you know, like traumatic experiences, and I now have to have this relationship with this person, right? And like I'm going to have to be on like my absolute best behavior and just really be conscious all the time to like be a good partner. And then he rocks up. I had left we met here. He's from here. I had left to Malaysia. I was living in Malaysia. I was woodshedding. I was working my business. And he came to meet me. So we went from having kissed like one time, and we were hanging out all the time. We were like friends, but we had like kissed one time. We had talked a bunch on like the internet, to living together, and in a foreign country. So it's just like us together all the time. And it turned out that he was just completely unconscious. Like he was just like super out of it. He had learned all of these ways of communicating and, you know, being like the good listener and stuff that were not actually like authentic. And so I didn't know the difference. And so we went through this massive growth experience where I was blaming myself, thinking like, is it me? Am I crazy? You know, is it my family? Whatever. And just trying to like figure out him, and not knowing, like I wasn't able to be myself. I still kept getting sort of snagged. Like I kept trying to like be myself and I couldn't. I kept trying to like, and all I had was this like independent way of being myself. Like, okay, so leave me alone. I'm going to go be myself because, you know, that's the only way I know how to do it, was like completely independently. And we would just like have all of these just challenges, just like we'd just be like fighting, you know, like, and I was like, I felt like I couldn't be myself. And after like, I think 2 years, I realized, maybe a year and a half, I realized, because I was thinking to myself one day, how could he be doing all this stuff, or how could he be living this way and not be like seriously depressed? And then it clicked, and I was like, oh my God, he's seriously depressed. So he went to counseling and he went on medication. We've done all this like soul searching, because I'm a digger. I dug and dug and dug and dug and dug. And it turns out that like he was living with all of this micro trauma that like he had no idea. That was so covert, that he was actually like this manufactured human walking around and totally not himself. So during this whole time, I was like gaining and gaining and gaining weight, like pretty slowly, like the whole time. And then we went to Mexico and everything exploded. Like everything from his past became very clear all of a sudden. And everything was just like on the surface, coming up, all of this like trauma. And I realize now too, this was all of my like family trauma. This was me being in this like family unit, because we went from like zero to like living together. I mean, we even had, this is my second promise ring, but we lived in Malaysia. It was a Muslim country. He brought me a ring so that it like looked like we were married. We said that we were married. So like we went straight into like family. And once we started like realizing that, I was able to start losing weight again. And I had tried and tried and tried, okay? Because I'm running a weight loss brand. And I'm like, well, I do not know what I'm talking about, you know? And then like I did, one time I did the IBCC for like a month, and I just did like every district I did a week. And I had dropped like, I didn't have a scale at the time, but I went from like, I went down 3 dress sizes. So double digits, so like six numbers. And
in a month?
That works. Yeah. I mean, that's me understanding all the principles and stuff and being very, very, you know, I created it. So like people don't like usually ever get those kinds of like results. It takes maybe, for that, I would say like maybe, I don't know, 6 months or something, 3 months, 6 months, something like that for a lot of people. But yeah, so I was like, no, this crap works. Like, what the hell? What's wrong with me? So basically, once we figured out that, like, you know, this was all this like stuff coming up, and realized that it wasn't just him, you know, it wasn't just like him and his trauma, that this was actually like me, and being able to work together with somebody, you know, through thick and thin, through, you know, their crap, through, you know, my crap because of their crap, etc. That was like next level me being myself. Right? So like now I'm learning how to like be myself in community with other people. So yeah, I've been learning, and yeah, I'm like, I think I've lost like a third of the weight that I gained in almost 4 years in like 3 months. So it's working. It's working slowly, but it's working. And I'm now putting together all the stuff that I'm learning from the interdependent work into like new programs for coaches, because I think that people that are in the interdependent phase, they would probably be going to coaches, right? Because they want to work with somebody like through stuff. So I'm putting together a training program for coaches, and I'm putting together a new community that's going to be a lot more connected. I had a membership before, but now I'm putting together like an actual community where people can be in contact, in community, like learning this interdependent approach to getting into their best bodies, like together with other people and with trained professionals and coaches, etc. So that's what I'm working on now.
Tell us about your offerings. I did IBCC, so I very much can provide my experience. But tell us what you currently offer.
Yeah, so actually everything is off the table right now because I'm still developing it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, the coaches, I'm taking in beta testers. So I can probably give like a discount code to your listeners to take like $1,500 off of the coaching certification. So that will be 4 weeks long. It starts November 15th. It's 4 weeks long. So the coaches will be certified in good timing. It'll be like 3 weeks before like the big New Year's kind of weight loss thing. And what it is it's a wellness for weight loss coaching certification. So it'll take people through like a body positive approach to weight loss, to using sort of self-care and self-love and like empowerment to get people into their ideal bodies. And yeah, it's designed for experienced coaches, because I won't be going into like the basics of coaching or anything. I'm not a coach, so I wouldn't even be qualified to do that. But it will be considered like we're doing certification with the International Coaching Federation under extended coaching training or extended coaching. So it's like training that you do after kind of you're already a coach. Mm-hmm. That's what it's geared towards. But I mean, anybody who is interested could probably enroll and glean something.
How is this different from IBCC and the Feminine Physique Academy? Like, how does it differ? Or is it just an extension?
Totally. No, I mean, IBCC, everything is geared towards like introspection, like and towards doing that personal work, that personal inner work to really get grounded and empowered in yourself. And so the Feminist Physique Academy is going to be called the Finest Physique Academy, and it is just like directly going to change. So basically the therapies and the tools that I make will be very, very similar. The hypnosis style stuff that we do, the roomies, they will probably be more identity based. Like changing our sense of identity of like who we are, like in relation to the world. And yeah, the rest of the therapies will also change just slightly to be bent towards working as an individual in a community. But the main difference between the Finest Physique Academy and the Feminist Physique Academy is the old FPA didn't have a community. It was strictly people doing personal work on a monthly basis, getting tools, getting guidelines, getting all of the practices and the therapies and courses and stuff from me. And the community will actually be like an app. There will be like community with coaches who are trained in the Uproots methods, and like just slightly different courseware, etc., that will teach the more interdependent like methods. And for the coaching certification, that is actually going to be totally different. So we'll be teaching coaches how to identify 3 different kinds of people, whether they're codependent needing independence, or codependent needing interdependence, or independent needing interdependence, and exactly what to do with each of these kinds of people, as well as we're blending some of, I run another brand called Sustainable Dreams Inc., where I train people on getting that same kind of empowerment, that same kind of alignment in business. So pairing that with some of the trainings and tools for coaches becoming the most like empowered kind of personal version of themselves, doing that inner work so that they can actually touch more lives and work for people even more, like serve even more. So it's going to be like a coupled thing. Like we'll be working, you know, that all the districts, we work in districts. It's always like start in mindset, and then we work on heart set, your emotional intelligence. We move on to soul set, where we're talking about like intuitive intelligence, and then onto body set, where we're talking about like actual like physical actions and things like metabolism and your body fat set point, etc. So in the coaching certification, we're actually going to do a double whammy. So in the mindset district, you'll get a whole bunch of courses that are geared towards, you know, being that optimal kind of coach mindset and being that optimal aligned you mindset. And then we'll also talk about things like reality IQ and how to spot like reality IQ divots and dents and how to heal them, and doing kind of like behavioral therapies with your clients to like get them into their highest mindset. And then for everything, every other district, for, you know, your emotional well-being, your spiritual well-being, and then your physical well-being, we'll be teaching the coaches kind of simultaneously personal and professional growth, and then also like how to get better results in that area for the clients as well. So that's like a completely different offering. I've never done anything like this, so I'm really excited about it.
That is exciting.
Yeah. Well, you guys should get in, because like I said, I'm doing beta testers, and I think it's like 75% off of what I'm going to charge. Yeah, I can give you a like a coupon code just for your listeners.
Yes.
You can just go with like Amity Rose.
Yes, that would be perfect.
Okay. Yeah, just go Amity Rose, and that will bring the price from $19.98 to $4.98.
Okay.
Yeah. So $1,500 off for being my beta tester.
Nice.
Your feedback.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the program. I thought it was just unlike anything I had ever, like, I knew intuitively, I knew that our physical makeup comes from, you know, energy, from our emotions, from our spiritual, our mental pattern, like all of that. And nobody's talking about that, how they're connected. And how you can actually shift your body by not even like working on your body, but actually cleaning up your thought patterns and being more authentic and feeling safe. And, you know, so it was, I was really attracted to your work just because the perspective is so different than like what's being, you know, played in the societal narrative. A lot of what you teach and what I really like is you don't say it outright, but we're getting back in line with our natural way of being. Mm-hmm. You know, and it was like, when you do that, naturally everything heals and falls into place. Like there isn't so much struggle or trying. So if we can just look at where are we out of alignment with just our natural way of being, everything else, you know, fixes itself.
Or what are we not giving space? Because like the evidence of that is everywhere. You get a cut and it heals, you know? So it's like, what are we not giving space to, you know? And I think like when we can figure that out, then it just like things naturally heal, they naturally move forward. It's like, you know, a seed has everything that it needs to know to get to wherever it's going, you know, and like it doesn't have consciousness, so it doesn't get gaslit, it doesn't have to question itself, you know, but yeah, I mean, we have that inside us too. There are birds that can tell like 6 months in advance when hurricane season is going to start. Mm-hmm. Like meteorologists don't even have a clue whether there's going to be a hurricane season at that point, and the birds will know. So like we have abilities too.
Oh my God,
that we don't even know how to understand, you know, like we're animals too. So I think if we tap into that, then yeah, I mean, we can do whatever we want to do, because I think that is kind of that little seed programming, being like, you know, I want to be this flower. I want to be this kind of flower. That's like our little seed programming saying like this is what you're programmed to do. If you would give this space, it would all just happen.
right? Easily. And then just being a part of nature, like we are nature. And so the more we get out into nature and be with nature, I think that we make life a lot harder and more complicated than it really is. And just by simply making those, you talked about it earlier, like habits, right? Just by making these small changes in our habits that are in more aligned with like our natural way of living and being.
Totally.
Healing is a natural byproduct of that, you know?
Yeah. Healing and growth. Healing and growth. Healing and growth.
I know, right? Those are two, like, I'm a personal development junkie. Like, that's all I do.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, it is all I did for like my whole freaking life. I remember like trying to work as little as possible, like all growing up just so I could, do my personal development work. And now look at us. Now we've got careers in the personal development realm. Who would have known?
But it makes so much sense. I'm surprised I didn't catch up on it earlier. Like, of course, this is my life's path. Like, they say, like, what would you do if you didn't have to work for money, or like it was, what do you just do for fun? Yeah. And, you can pass the time. And it was like this. Like, I love studying the self. Like I said, I don't think that we understand how incredibly powerful we are. Like what we can create with our imaginations, and how we can transform our body just by being safe. I mean, if you look at that stuff, it's incredible. So I have always been fascinated by like being a human and what that means and how to utilize that. You talked about learn the rules of the game so you can play and win the game.
Absolutely.
So if there's universal principles at play, which I'm sure you studied, when you were in the Eastern culture and stuff, like if there's universal laws, you learn the rules, you learn the laws, and then you can navigate within them, pretty successfully. But a lot of us are just bouncing around. We don't know the rules.
Yeah.
We're just learning as we go, right?
Yeah, no, that's why this work is so important, like teaching people the rules so that they can, thrive and win the game.
Yeah. And I say it so much in my work. It always comes back to the self. Yeah. Even a teacher, a guide, a coach, all of that, a good teacher, guide, or coach will always lead you back to yourself. Like that Absolutely. Is where it all is.
Even the Buddha said, like, if you see me on the path to enlightenment, kill me, because I know people don't often know.
Okay.
It means if you're following my teachings, if you see me on the path to enlightenment, then kill me, because like I don't have anything to do with this. This is all the self. This is all your path.
I get it.
Yeah. So the Buddha can show you the way kind of or whatever, but you have to find the way within you. You can't actually follow anybody there.
Yeah. And there's brilliant teachers and guides, and I mean, books, words. I mean, it's all just leading us always back to the self. And what I thought was so incredibly important was what you attracted in your partner, that you were able to recognize that it mirrored your early childhood family dynamic, and that's not coincidence.
No,
that's purposeful. And that's like, okay, are you ready to heal? Because here it is, and you have a choice. You were given a choice in that moment, and you chose, well, let's ride this wave. Let's untangle this and heal. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I really, really, really appreciate it.
No worries. It's really nice to be able to like reflect, and every time I teach, like I always learn a whole bunch. So thank you for having me and having me have this opportunity to learn more about you and learn more about life and everything. It's great.
You're welcome.